Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. And before we get into it with our guests here today, I'd like to remind everyone that if you enjoy this content, to please give a like and subscribe down below. I'd greatly appreciate it. We have Becca Lathe on the podcast. She's coming to us all the way from the UK, where, she's our dozenth guest from the UK on. That's a big milestone for us. But she's on to share her bodybuilding journey and, talk all things health and fitness, and especially now that the UK is in another round of lockdowns. But as you can see, she is very well stocked up for this. She's probably one of the few people that are actually prepared for this. We've had so many people where they're like, oh, I had to, just go in a free fall, but it looks like she had a really nice setup to begin with. But most importantly, she's our current guest. Becky, thank you so much for coming on.
You're welcome. Thanks for asking me.
Well, I got to ask, first of all, because I love torturing myself, what is the weather like in the UK today?
The weather in the UK is cold and dark and wet, and it is about 2 degrees currently.
Now, again, everyone, I have to remind her that she's talking about in Celsius. Fahrenheit's a little bit of a different thing over here. So, but yeah, here, yeah. Oh, no, not a problem at all. We get that a lot too. So I had a guest on who she was originally from Denmark a couple of days ago, and then she was in California, but she was reading the temperature. She's like, oh, it's only 20 degrees out there. And I was like, no, it's California. And then she's like, oh, it's like actually 80. But yeah, I'm in Minnesota, which is probably like the coldest part in the United States, where it's like 20 degrees Fahrenheit here, and we got a lot of snow. But yeah, that's why I love asking guest questions. First of all, I hate the guests that I have on from the southern U.S. where they just basically talk about, oh, it's 60 degrees here and I had to wear a sweater, and it's like, screw you. You don't know what cold is really. But before we get into all that, because that's a whole podcast in and of itself of me just telling winter weather woes, why don't you give us your backstory on what really inspired and motivated you to get in shape and how that led to, where you're currently at right now?
Okay, so me getting into bodybuilding was a complete and utter accident. I didn't suddenly wake up one morning and decide I want to be a bodybuilder. I never had any big desire to get super fit or to grow any muscles. What happened was that one of my very close friends, sadly her mum died, and to try and help her get over her grief after the funeral, she wanted to start doing some sort of physical activity. So we had a look around, and opening up locally was a women's only HIIT boot camp. And she decided that was what she wanted to go and do. So really, really reluctantly, I agreed to go with her because she didn't want to go by herself. So off we went to this HIIT boot camp, and it was 50% cardio stuff and 50% strength training. And gradually, over the weeks, from not wanting to go at all, I fell in love with the strength training part of the sessions. And they were only 30 minutes long, but I started going every day, and I really enjoyed getting stronger, being able to do more weights gradually as the sessions went on and the weeks went on. And I started to think, actually, I really enjoy this. I didn't like the cardio stuff. I didn't like all the burpees and all the star jumps, but there was no way I was confident enough to just go and join a gym. And so I asked the trainer who took the sessions whether he would teach me to lift some weights after the sessions on a one-on-one, because I've been going for quite a few months now, so we built a relationship, and he knew who I was, and he agreed to do that. So I started doing the HIIT boot camp, stopping behind afterwards, and having a one-on-one session with the trainer who taught me to squat and to deadlift and just the basics of training. And I absolutely loved it. My friend who I'd started the boot camp with stopped going. She no longer went, and I was absolutely addicted and loved it. And I really loved the sessions after the boot camp almost more than the boot camp itself. But I was limited because I could only train and lift weights in those couple of sessions a week with the trainer. We had at home this room where I'm sitting now, which was actually our double garage, and it was just full of junk and rubbish and all the normal stuff that gets put in a double garage. Not a car, not a car in here at all. So we cleared it all out, and I employed a builder to come and convert it into a gym so that I could train whenever I wanted to. So I wasn't limited by having to just do the sessions after the boot camp. The trainer from the boot camp advised me on everything to buy. He was absolutely amazing. So we kitted it all out, and I started to train here. And that's when things kind of snowballed and got out of control because I could train every day. I still have the same trainer, by the way, still the same the same gentleman, Mitch, comes and trains me 3 times a week. So he's trained me from day one, which has been amazing because he's grown me from being I was really, really tiny. I was 7.5 stone, so that's 105 pounds. So and I'm 5'9", so I was really, really small. I was a classic undereater. I did way too much cardio. I did lots of running. I always wanted to be skinny and smaller. So this was like a radical switch to suddenly enjoy the strength training and enjoy getting stronger every week. So yeah, it was a complete accident and an absolutely amazing.
So yeah, she went from basically 105 pounds to yesterday she posted a thing where she was benching basically like 169 pounds basically. So yeah, a little bit of a transformation there, but just a tiny bit. But when you were getting started, even before you started taking that class, I mean, a myth and stereotype that I love to bust in this podcast, and we discussed it briefly before we started recording, is that, I mean, it's gotten better the last 5 years due to stuff like Instagram and whatnot, but there are still so many women that have that fear that if they walk into a gym and they, pick up one weight, they're going to put on 50 pounds of muscle overnight. Did you ever have that fear before you got started really with the training? Or was that something that you kind of were just like, oh, I'll see what happens? But also, I mean, I bet you still hear that all the time. How do you like to respond to that? Because it's something that unfortunately still occurs a lot.
I do hear that all the time, and it's really, really funny because that would just be amazing if it was true. Because it is so, so hard to gain muscle. It is so much work. I work every single day lifting with progressive overload, working really hard. I've got the best trainer who's writing my programs, and my nutrition is absolutely on point. And that's key if you're going to grow. You really won't grow unless your diet and nutrition is absolutely 100%. So it's quite safe for women to walk into a gym and to pick up weights, and they're definitely not going to get big. It's really, really hard work to try and grow any muscle. It's not going to happen by accident, sadly. I wish it would.
Yeah, I mean, I always said the amount of times that I've had to shake some people down, just be like, you do not know what it takes to really achieve, a solid muscle growth. And again, if that does happen to you, give me your phone number and I'll spend my entire life savings to train with you then, because you have found the secret that so many people are looking for. But on top of that, I always say the one thing that impacts women, especially so much more positively than men. Now it impacts men as well, as from working out, is just that confidence boost that working out gives you. We have heard hundreds of stories on this podcast of, women who have been able to make life-changing decisions. It's helped them maybe become more assertive, or just that one thing that you can take from the gym and use to impact every single aspect of your life in a positive way. How have you taken working out and used it to impact your life in a positive way?
I'm definitely a more confident person than I was before. I'm not an extrovert now, but I've certainly always been quite the introvert. I never would have done this anything like this ever before. So yeah, this is well out of my comfort zone. So I think it has been positive, and it's good to have something that's a goal every single day. It's good to have a drive, and it's good to have a passion. And for me, this is just a passion. I don't compete. I'm not going to get on stage and try and beat other women. That's not what it's about for me. For me, it's just something that I love. It's something I've found accidentally quite late in my life, and I just absolutely love it. And I'm just enjoying every single day of training, and I'm enjoying seeing what a middle-aged woman can do with her old body, see what I can do with it, see how much I can change it and how much I can make it grow. At a time really when most people perhaps are thinking that this is the body they're going to have for the rest of their lives, it's too late, they can't change how they are now. Um, it's interesting. I'm an experiment with myself. I was a biochemist when I worked before my children's, so I've sort of got that interest in science and experiments anyway. So for me, this is my own personal experiment on myself to see what can I do.
Yeah, that's amazing. And that's the one thing that when I started doing research about you, is that, yeah, you don't compete. And I was like, oh, wow, that's even more fascinating because, just to put in that amount of work and not compete, I mean, that's something that we find rare here. And I've had other similar podcast guests to that. It's only like a handful though, but it's even more power to you. And plus, let's be honest, you're only on the stage for a couple of minutes anyway. So you're not missing that much. And the posing too. It's like, come on, it takes people such a long time to figure that out. And yeah, so that's me too. Like if I would never compete myself, and I would just be into that shape. But I love to talk genetics on this podcast because so many people do not understand that are on social media. I hear this all the time. Oh my God, I want his arms, I want her abs, I want their back. People just don't realize that they can only be the best version of themselves.
You can only play with the cards that you're dealt. So your genetics are absolutely your genetics, and you cannot change that. So you're dealt your set of cards and you can just make the best of what you're given. And if you don't have genes for a great back, no matter how much you spend working on your back, you're never going to have a great back. So there's no point comparing yourself to X, Y, and Z if you're the letter B, because you're never going to be able to make yourself into an X, Y, or Z. So there's just no point in that for me. So I train a 7-day program with a different muscle group every day, but all I want to do every week is beat the reps and the weights that I lifted the week before. That's it. I don't care about beating anyone else. I don't care about looking better than anyone else. That's why I don't want to get on stage. I don't want to win trophies or medals, or I don't want to be sponsored or anything like that. I'm just doing something I really enjoy for my own sense of self because I love it.
Absolutely. I couldn't have put it better myself. But on top of that, whenever someone first gets started working out, they always have that one body part that really, really takes off that they don't have to train as much. And they have that one body part that just lags behind. They have to train to oblivion. I'll give you my examples first. My back was the one that really took off for me just because I had jobs all throughout college of, lifting and loading boxes into trucks, and you either got a really nice back, you quit. But I'm 6'3", so my legs and my lower body, you probably understand this being a taller person yourself. My legs are just shot where, I could train them into oblivion. They wouldn't gain an ounce. I've always said I could inject pure muscle into my calves and my thighs, and they wouldn't gain anything. So it's a curse for me. But what were those body parts for you that when you were getting started?
So in the beginning, shoulders and back are really good responders for me. So I've got these nice cap shoulders. Yes, I work really hard for them, but they grew quite early on, same as my back grew quite early on, and they're a good shape. So genetically, I've got ticks for shoulders and back. My arms have been absolutely so hard to grow. I'm really long limbed because I'm 5'9".
Which are weird because that's one of her best body parts. So that how that took so long. That's let's see the guns then. Look at that. Yeah, see that's pretty damn good. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, that's ridiculous.
But my problem is my bicep is really long, so my attachment is right down in the crook of my elbow. So some people's bicep, they can get like 3 fingers in and it attaches up here. So if it's really easy for them to get a peak when they contract that up because the bicep's so much shorter. But because the length of my muscle, it's much more difficult for me to get a peak. I've got to grow a lot more muscle for it to be visible because my limbs are so long. Same as you with your legs, similar
Oh,
problem.
well, me and my arms too. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I don't have like amazing arms as well. But yeah, that's another thing with just the length to it. But yeah, so I do have to ask though, because shoulders, I keep a list track of this for like what guests say is like the body part that really took off and the body part that really lagged behind. For women, especially, shoulders is the number one that we hear of all the time. And I know that you said you were genetic. Yeah, it's something that I would have never. And a lot of it's for competitors too, because you need to have really nice shoulders if you want to compete. But what does a shoulder workout look like for you? Because for so many women, I would get bombasted in the comments down below, or if you're like, oh my God, she has great shoulders and you're not going to ask her how she did it. Like, I want to know her secrets. So what does a shoulder day look like for you?
Okay, so for a capped shoulder like this, you really want a really good medial delt. So medial delts for me is lat raises. So, and it's not particularly heavy because it's not about the weight for lat raises, it's volume. So it's form, it's a good mind muscle connection, and it's keeping that medial delt on top through the whole movement. So it's having a really good connection with that medial delt, feeling it fill with blood, and knowing how that feels for you and when that's right. So yeah, the lat raises for medial delt all day long. Can't do enough of them.
Yep. No, and people got to remember too. There's more than one part of your shoulder too. There's 3 parts to it, and so many people just, especially the beginners, they're just like, "Oh, I just want to train my shoulder." And I was like, "Oh, well, what part of the shoulder are you trying to work on?" And then they really sort of have to, get into that. So, but yeah, that is a great exercise to do. And you mentioned mind to muscle connection. And that's one thing that really I think differentiates, the hardcore lifters to the just the novices, because it's something that people hear about and they're like, "Oh, mind to muscle connection, what is that?" And it's one thing that I was familiar with when I was I was getting started in college because I was told about it. But if someone, I'm going to pretend that I was born underneath a rock, and if someone were to walk up to you and say, how would you explain mind to muscle connection to them? What would you say?
It's that being, oh, it's very difficult to explain. It's the connection between what your mind, your brain is telling your muscle to do. So it's being able to have that direct control. It's being able to control that particular muscle that you're trying to train. So if it's shoulder day and we're training front delt, it's being able to contract that front delt, get a full squeeze, and then relax that front delt with every single rep. and not recruit other muscles that you don't want to involve in that day, which is quite difficult to do. But I've had the best trainer from day one, Mitch, and he's with me 3 days a week. And because I've never trained without him, he's taught me correctly from the beginning. So I think I've got really good mind muscle connections. I think I've got really good form because I've never just gone off and done my own thing. I've had a professional trainer with me the whole time, and I really, really think that's helped my progress and helped me to grow. And it really helped us max out all those newbie gains from when we first started because I wasn't just ambling around the gym doing a bit of this or a bit of that. I had strict programs with someone who was a stickler for form, and it was absolutely 100% from day one.
Yeah. And that's great too that you have that as being as a trainer too. And that's if anyone's ever thinking about getting started, I always said you should get a trainer because especially if you don't have that background, where if you're like me where you had that background just from sports and stuff, you might not need a trainer, but yeah, just find someone that knows their stuff, and that's going to, that's one of the reasons why people actually stay in this journey if they get into it, is if they have that trainer that really encourages them, because otherwise most people, they go a week and a lot of times they try to go full Rambo where they'll train, 3 hours a day, and then they're like, "Oh my god, I'm just totally dead." And it's like, well, yeah, because you're working yourself to death basically, and then they won't want to train after a week. But yeah, and I mean,
Someone who knows you and who understands what your goals are, what you want to achieve. And then as you go along and you pick up little niggles and you pick up muscle groups that are good responders and muscle groups that aren't, it's someone who can then adapt the program specifically for you. There are lots of things that I do in my training program that wouldn't suit anybody else because they're designed specifically for me. So yeah, having not having just a cookie cutter program that you can just get off the internet, having something that's just personal for you, I think that's really important.
yep, and like we've said before, I mean, everyone's different too, and that's unfortunate for a lot of people because they see other people's results and it's like, oh, I want to look just like her, and it's like, well, unfortunately, that is not the case. But one thing about mind and muscle connection that's even more fascinating to me is that, like, let's say you develop a great mind and muscle connection with your shoulders. That doesn't mean you're going to have a good mind and muscle connection with your legs. It's always something that's always, body part based, where that's the hardest thing for so many people to realize is that, you can't just form an overall mind and muscle connection just overnight. It takes people such a long period of time. How long into your journey before you think you had that nice overall mind and muscle connection? Because it could take you maybe a couple of weeks to get a nice shoulder, but to get that overall body, that's going to take a significant amount of time.
Absolutely, definitely. I don't know, things like my chest have taken, how long have I been training? Nearly 4 years. I'd say things like the control for my chest I've probably only had for the last year, 18 months. They've taken ages. And I can remember at the beginning my trainer saying to me, contract your upper pec. And I would do that and nothing would move. I was literally, and he would do it. And I would just be in awe of it and say, how can you do that? How can you make that move? Because I just didn't have the ability to have that connection at all. And then gradually over time, it slowly comes, but it's not a quick process. Really, not a quick process.
Yep. Absolutely. It's going to take time, which is why I say people my age, this is not a lifestyle that you're going to want to get into because everyone my age wants everything now and they want it yesterday, where it's like, yeah, this is the one lifestyle where that's not going to happen. So you might want to rethink things before you really get into it.
And that's what I like about it. I really love the fact that you can't just get it tomorrow. I can't just say I want better legs and next week I've got them. At the start of the year, my trainer and I will have a powwow and a chat about what we want to achieve for that year. So the year before last, it was arms, and it's literally taken 2 years to bring those arms up. And yes, that's some people would see that as a negative, but I really see that as a positive. I love the fact that you have to work really hard for it. I love the fact that you can't buy it, you can't borrow it. There's no other way of getting it other than just sheer hard work, day in, day out, week in, week out. And it has to be your whole lifestyle. It's not something you can dip in and out of and do it a couple of times this week and then have a few weeks off and then maybe come back to it. It doesn't work. It doesn't work like that. It's consistency. It's the only way if you're going to get progress.
Absolutely. And that's one thing that I appreciate about it as well, because it really just shows whenever you see someone that's in really great shape, that they put the time and the effort into it and they're just, not luckily born with it. But what was your family and friends' reaction like when you really started to take this sport seriously? What was their vibe like, and has it changed as your journey's gone on?
I don't know because it started so gradually and it kind of crept in. People almost didn't see it coming. Um, but then once I got the gym at home and was training every day, and things got a lot more serious. I'm not sure. I think some people perhaps thought I was just having a midlife crisis because I am 48. So, and if this is my midlife crisis, then I'm more than happy with it, and I'm having a great time with it. Some people go and buy a Porsche car. I've just decided I want to see how much lean muscle I can build on my body. So I don't know. It's an unusual thing to do, but as I say, it's something that I never planned to do. It's found me, and because it's found me, I'm literally just running with it and having a great time with it. People say to me, "What's your goal?" All the time on Instagram, people say to me, "What's your goal?" And I literally have no end game. There's nothing I'm trying to achieve. I'm not trying to get a pro card or win a certain competition or bench a certain weight or squat. None of that for me.
Yeah. And that's honestly one of the best mindsets to have. And so many people expect, and that's why I also tell people that, aren't 100% that want to get into the sport of it. I say, don't do it because yeah, once you're into it though, so many times, so many people are just in so far that when they don't feel like doing it anymore, they kind of just, it becomes like a job for them. And once it becomes a job for them, then, you're basically like you're having two jobs, then your other job and then your bodybuilding job, which, no one wants to really have two jobs. And that's just in and of itself. But
But if it's a chore, because it's so all consuming, because it's not just an hour a day for the training, it's 24 hours a day because it's your food and it's your rest and it's your supplements and it's your training. So it is just your entire life. So yeah, you couldn't do it if it was a chore. You really couldn't.
yeah, and talking about your food, I mean, nutrition, that's 80 to 90% of the changes that you're going to see. Unfortunately, as I've told you before, I struggle with nutrition at times. But what were some of the bigger nutritional changes that you made when you really started to take things seriously?
Okay, so as I said before, I was a professional undereater. I was really, really light, really small. Not didn't have a great relationship with food. Still don't really. Food and I are not friends. We never will be. But I have to eat now because I love to train and I love to improve in the gym. So I have to fuel it. And I know that if I don't fuel it, I'm not going to get any better. So I guess when this began, I probably lived on around 1,000 calories a day back in the beginning. Yeah, a real under eater. And gradually, my trainer just gave me 100 extra calories to eat every day for the next week. And then the following week, another 100 extra calories. And I would kind of kick and scream and have a paddy and say, "I'm going to get fat. You're going to make me fat." And he would reassure me and just say, "It's fine. Just eat the calories, do the training." And gradually, you start to build a muscle mass. Well, he got me out of my deficit and got me to maintenance and then got me into a little bit of an excess, which obviously you need if you're going to grow. You can do all the gymming in the world, but unless you're in that small calorie excess, you're not going to grow any muscle. So he got me in a nice little calorie excess and I started to grow. And then once I started to build the muscle mass, obviously you need even more calories in order to fuel it. So for me, all the food and all the eating is the hardest thing. Yeah, I have to eat a lot of calories every day. I have to eat a lot of food. And for someone who's not a food lover, that's not that's not an ideal situation. But I do it because I love the gym so much.
Yeah, and well, and another thing on top of that too is that food is going to become probably one of your most costly expenses too. People don't understand that when you get into bodybuilding because, yeah, like you said, you are constantly eating. Where for me, yeah, that's my number one expense. Even when I was not living at home, that was bigger than my rent at times. Was the food bills that I'd get. So yeah, it's definitely game changing in that retrospect. But I mentioned to you before, I had a guest on from Oxford who we talked about the importance of sleep. And I mean, when you're bodybuilding, sleep is 10 times more important than it is for just, someone who's just, an average Joe because, rest and recovery is the most important thing in this lifestyle. And for anyone that doesn't agree with that, I always tell them go pull an all-nighter and then try and work out the next morning and then tell me how that feels because I did that twice in college and I lasted about halfway through the workout and I was like, okay, screw this. I need to go and get some sleep. But what is your relationship with sleep like? Because I mean, the amount of answers that I've had in this podcast of people who, who can live off of 4 hours or they have to get, like 10 hours. It varies person to person, but what is your relationship with sleep currently like?
I am an excellent sleeper. I'm a terrible eater, but I'm an excellent sleeper. So I always sleep at least 8 or 9 hours every single night. I'm a really deep sleeper. Once I'm asleep, nothing wakes me up. We can have thunderstorms, howling winds, all sorts here. And everyone the next day will be saying, "Did you hear the weather last night?" Me, not a thing. I literally sleep like the dead. Um, So yeah, at least 8 or 9 hours every night, and I'll quite often have a nap in the afternoon as well. But sleep is absolutely key because you only grow when you're sleeping, and you sleep's so important for recovery. And especially as I'm older, I'm not 21, 22. I can't bounce around on 4 or 5 hours sleep like that. If I'm going to grow, I'm going to have to eat, and I'm damn sure going to have to sleep as well.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, I wish as you can tell, I'm one of those hyperactive people where I just can't take a nap. For me, a nap is literally just laying on a couch and just closing my eyes, but not falling asleep, where I'll just close my eyes for like half an hour and then that counts as a nap. But yeah, unfortunately, I have not been blessed with that. But cardio is a trigger word for me because I hate it more than life itself. I mean, I absolutely hate cardio. And when I say cardio, I mean like actually running. I could walk on a treadmill for, 8 hours a day and I'd be fine with it. But do you do any cardio at all for, I know, because, not, since you're not competing, you don't have to get to like that, like 2 to 3% body fat. Do you do any cardio at all?
I don't do any cardio at all, nothing at all, and I haven't done since I stopped doing the boot camps a couple of years ago. So no, I literally do nothing. I have got a bike in the gym, but I just use it for putting my gloves on and my wraps on. I've never used it. I don't do any cardio. Um, no, I struggle to hold my weight. So for me, I don't need to do any cardio because I'm just going to burn more calories, and then I'm just going to have to eat more calories. So for me, that's a no. The same as I don't do the steps. Lots of people live by 10,000 steps a day and they live by their Fitbits. I don't have a Fitbit. I probably do under 1,000 steps a day. I don't move. I literally train, eat, and rest.
Like I told one of my ex-girlfriends, the only time you're ever gonna see me run, you basically have to be chasing me with a knife. That's the only time you're gonna really ever see me run. But yeah, I mean
If
that.
I'm running, you some sort of emergency on. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really one of the few cases that you'll see me on that. But I mean, now we get to the real elephant in the room, the coronavirus, because it's been one thing that's impacted our lives in more ways than we could have ever imagined. I mean, especially being in the UK where you guys are locked down again because they have that new variant of the virus out, and here in Minnesota we were shut down. The gyms were shut down from March till like July, and then they shut down again in October, and now they're going to be shut down until probably to at least the beginning of February. What has this whole experience with coronavirus been like for you?
Well, I guess I'm really, really lucky because I've got this gym set up at home. So for me, it's not impacted on my training very much. On a pre-COVID, I would train at home 6 days a week, and then one day a week I would go to the gym where my trainer works for him to train me there, just for us to use equipment that I don't have here. I don't have big machines that you've got in the public gyms. I don't have that here. So we would go to the gym that he works at to use those, and just to see other people really, for me to see other people training, for other people to see me training. So that's not happening at the moment because, as you say, we are in the third lockdown. The gyms are shut. We've got no end date at the moment, so we don't know when this is going to, when it's going to be over. But they are rolling out the vaccines, so that's obviously the way out of it. So hopefully, at some point in the next weeks or months, things will be able to open back up again. But no, I know I've been really, really lucky because my training has not been affected like so many other people's training has been.
Yeah, I mean, you're like the 10 percenters that we've had on since the COVID started, where, I mean, most people, yeah, their training is just absolutely shot. Or we've had some bodybuilders where their preps have lasted like a full year where they've lost, like 20 pounds of muscle because they had to stay on prep the whole time. And yeah, it's just one of these days. I mean, I had a grandpa who's a Korean War veteran. And I talked to him and I said, "Is there anything like this that you've ever experienced in your life?" And he's like, "No, not even through all the stuff that I did. I've never." So it's just a fascinating time to be alive, and it's just with everything that's going on. Yeah, it's just you look at it and you're just like, "Wow, I can't believe that." Even like a year ago, if we were to talk a year ago, it would have been totally normal and serene, and just how everything has changed. But one question that I like to ask female bodybuilders in general is that, if you were to walk out in public, dressed the way you are right now, obviously don't do that because like you said, it's cold out and yeah, it's freezing out there. But like in the summertime, whenever bodybuilders go out in public, they sort of become like mini celebrities because people look at it and then it's just something that they're not used to seeing. So then people become fascinated by it. You probably get a lot of stares. What has that been like for you getting used to the fact that like if you walk out in public and you show any skin, basically, I mean, people are going to be like, wow, she looks amazing. Or, they'll just come up and talk to you. What has that whole adjustment been like for you? Because I mean, going from someone who probably, got some attention, but, people weren't just going out of their way to come up and talk to you. What has that been like for you?
Okay, so no, I didn't get any attention before. Nobody would ever kind of come and talk to me or look at me. And you're quite right. Now in the summer in the UK, if I'm in a vest top like this, I mean, I do look different to the average middle-aged females on the beach. So people do look, and people do stare. And in the beginning, that was quite hard to get used to, because I almost forget that I looked different. Whereas now I've grown into it, and I know what's going to happen. I know when we go on holiday, the first couple of days around the pool, everyone's kind of looking, and then after a bit, people get bored of it, and then they don't stare quite so much. But it's just difference, isn't it? Anything that's different is going to attract attention. And some people will come over and chat to me and ask me about my training, which is lovely. I've had some great conversations. I've met some lovely people, and other people obviously just aren't into the whole look of it, and just don't like muscle on a woman, which is fine. Each to their own.
Yeah. And yeah, it's just, yeah, it's, you're gonna get both opinions normally, and yeah, it's just nice to just, just realize that, yeah, you can't change people's opinions. They're always gonna think, what they think, and but it's so great that you're able to, at least think that way, because that's just a great, I think it makes everything so much easier in life. You're able to just let it go and just, let it sort of flow off of you. But being that you were a biochemist before, you had your kid, and then you stopped, do you think that background really helped you when it came to developing size and bodybuilding? Because bodybuilding is chemistry, basically. I don't care what anyone says. I mean, it's just trial and error, and just, it's always just figuring out new ways to do it. Do you really think that background really helped you?
I think it did, because I totally agree with you that bodybuilding is maths, and it's chemistry, and because I've got that scientific background, I've got that experimental background, I've got a degree in biomedical science. So yeah, it's right up my street. It's right up all the things that I enjoy. I've got a good understanding of physiology and biochemistry, so I understand what's going on inside, rather than just lifting this weight and is it going to make my bicep bigger. I understand what's actually happening at a cellular level, so I do think that's helped me. I'm not saying that you need to understand that in order to be a bodybuilder, but for me, I really like to know why for things. That's probably the scientist in me, isn't it? I like to have an understanding of what's going on, and just because of my background, by pure coincidence, I do have that bit of knowledge, and yeah, I like that.
Yeah. And probably the most important question that I ask, because this is one thing that's never talked about on Instagram at all, and it really needs to be, is that there are going to be days where you're not going to feel like, working out. I don't care what anyone says. I've had people come on and tell me that, like, oh, there's never been one day where I haven't felt like working out, or I've felt perfect. And it's like, well, I'll say yes to it just because you're a guest on here. But deep down, I was like, really? There's never been one day where you woke up and you're like, I really don't want to do it today, but I have to. How do you deal with those type of days when your body is just saying, like, hey, let's just take a rest day, but you're like, hey, I've gotten into this lifestyle. I really need to, I really need to just go and, just get it over with. How do you deal with those days? Because I think one of the reasons why so many people quit early on is because they don't see from a lot of the people that they follow that that's actually a thing, where a lot of people just assume, oh, I don't have their mindset where I wake up every single morning and I'm like, I'm ready to go, I can't wait to train today. So then when they have those days where they're off, they're like, oh, I must just be not really made for this lifestyle. But how do you deal with those days personally?
Everybody has those days, and if someone says they don't have those days, then they're not telling the truth. I will quite openly story about days like that on my Instagram. I had one on Friday where I really struggled to train, and I just literally put on my story, really struggled today. I'm tired, I'm sore, and my head's not in the game. And I actually put, I'm not always super motivated, but I am super disciplined, and that's the difference, because nobody is motivated every single day. We're not machines, we're human beings. Some days your head just doesn't want to do it, but I think if you can be disciplined, then half the time when you don't want to do it, and I come into the gym and I make a start, once I'm 10 minutes in, I'm really glad that I'm doing it, and I've had some of my best sessions in those circumstances. But then other times you still stay not super motivated all the way through. The whole thing's a struggle, but at the end of it, it's done, it's ticked off, and a week later, I'm glad I've done it. I always try and think about not how I'm feeling in that moment, but how I'm going to feel looking back on it in a few weeks or a few months' time, because you'll never regret doing the training and putting the work in. You'll only ever regret not doing it. So it's about trying to take a longer picture and a bigger view of that particular session.
And on the flip side, how do you deal with rest days? Because especially when you're really into this lifestyle, rest days can sometimes be like those days where you're just itching to go and do something, but you're like, no, my body needs this rest. How are you able to deal with that on the flip side of the days where you really want to work out, but like you really do need to rest?
Okay, well, I don't actually have scheduled rest days,
Oh,
which
wow.
probably sounds so I don't have scheduled rest days in my program. So I normally train 7 days a week, but I will take a rest day if I am really really sore, really really tired, or if I'm unwell. Obviously, I won't train if I've got a temperature or I'm unwell. That's just silly. You're just gonna make yourself more poorly. So I don't have anything scheduled as a rest day because I think life deals you rest days. So I take them when either circumstances deal me one. Um, yeah, those are my rest days. But it's certainly not written up on the board behind me to have a rest day. I know people have 1 or 2 days a week, but I don't do that just because I enjoy training. I really enjoy training, and because I train an old school bro split. So I have a day for arms and a day for shoulders. So obviously those are less strenuous days compared to say quad day or back day. So I do have lighter days in the week. So if I'm feeling more tired, I'll be okay. I'll train arms today.
So do you not? So do you have days like set in stone? So like arm days always on Monday, or it's always on Tuesday, or do you mix it up like weekly? Like, oh, if I trained, back this Tuesday, then next week it's going to be on a Wednesday, or is it something that's always set in stone?
It's not set on a particular day because I always see my trainer on the same day. So I see Mitch on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays. So he likes to be able to see each of my body parts. And if I was only to train back on a Monday, legs on a Tuesday, and arms on a Thursday, that was all he'd ever see. So we make sure that we rotate it round so that at least every 3 weeks he will have seen all of the body parts so that he's got eyes on me doing a form check because everyone needs their form check even if they've been training for a while. He will push for weights up or reps up. If I've got a niggle or an injury, he might want to change, switch out one of the exercises for something else. Yeah, so I like him to see, and he likes to see all of my body part splits. So no, we don't keep things on a particular day. I will move them around in the week, but everything gets trained every week.
And that's, yeah, you always got to hit those. And if someone were to walk up to you and say, I made the decision, I want to get in shape now, and one thing that impacts everyone is, everyone wants to get in better shape. I don't care what anyone says. You could be the most in shape person on the planet, you'll find a flaw, but so many people just lack the knowledge on how to do it. I really think that's the one thing that holds them back. They don't know. They know how to work out, but they don't know about the nutrition. They don't know about how many times they should do it. They don't know the specifics. But what would be the best piece of advice that you would give just a general person? Because like we've said before, everyone's different. So if you give a piece of advice to someone and you give the same piece of advice to someone else, they're going to have different results. But generally, what would you say to someone if they came up to you and they said, hey, I just want to get started working out? Because for so many people, taking that first step is the hardest thing. And once you take that first step, everything just becomes so much easier.
I would say definitely find yourself a trainer. Ideally, get someone on a personal recommendation. Find someone who you can see has worked with clients similar to yourself, perhaps with similar goals to yourself. Someone who's tried and tested and got a great track record, and then just book a single session with them and see how you get on. Because ultimately, it's all about personalities, and if you're going to train with someone consistently, you have to get along. You have to to be good friends, and enjoy working together, and enjoy sharing that time together. So I would definitely say get a trainer. I mean, if you don't want to get a trainer, then you're going to have to do a lot of research, a lot of reading. Um, yeah, it's a lot more of an uphill struggle because you're going to have to get a handle on your nutrition. You're going to have to work out whether do you want to lose fat first, in which case you need to be in a deficit. Do you want to gain muscle first, in which case you need to be in an excess, and then you need to have someone in charge of your macros to work out what's best for you. I don't know. I just think it's for the average person in the street, it's very complicated. And unless you're going to go by trial and error, um, which for me was not what I wanted to do. I wanted I wanted to be absolutely 100%. This is what we're doing. I want to have the best results in the smallest of a period of time that I can manage. So therefore, I want it absolutely right from the beginning. Um, So that's what I've done, and that's why I've been able to do it. Well, people say it's quickly. It's nearly 4 years, and it's every single day. So it's not quickly, but it's not 10 years.
Yeah. No, and that's great too because yeah, I mean, again, a lot of people and a lot of my friends, they last a week because they go in and they just train everything so hard and then they don't know, when to take rest days or they don't know when to take breaks. They don't know anything really about it. And so, yeah, just find a trainer too. And if you can't find a trainer, if you can't afford a trainer, just go for a walk every once in a while. I mean, that's one of the best things that you can do just to get started and just start drinking more water. But also, if someone were to walk up to you and say, we made the decision, you can change one thing about the lifestyle of, about this healthy and fit lifestyle, and it would go, and everyone would have to go along with it. What would be one thing that you'd like to see changed about this lifestyle?
My lifestyle, or the lifestyle of everybody else.
Or just the health and fitness lifestyle overall that you see from like everyone that does it.
I'd like to see less rubbish written.
That too.
I'd like to see less people trying to sell their detox teas and their build big biceps in 6 weeks programs, and I'd like to see less people trying to make money out of people's desires to better their bodies, and people trying to sell them a quick fix, because there's nothing in this game is quick. It's slow, and it's nothing that you can buy. You can't buy a product. You can't buy yourself a tea. You can't take a tablet. It's just long, boring, very unsexy work.
Yep. No, and that's one thing too where I say every day there's like 1,000 new ways invented on how to lose weight, and none of them work really. So it's just there have been ways that people have been doing it for hundreds of years that work, and so just stick to those. But yeah, I find that so fascinating when I'm on Instagram and I'm just scrolling through and all these people are promoting their things, and it's like, oh my god, just why? But if we were to talk to you a year
There's
from now,
lose weight,
yeah,
and that's to be a calorie deficit.
yeah,
That's it. If
absolutely,
anybody else tells you anything different, they're lying to you.
absolutely,
There's
yeah,
all the different diets that work only work because of one reason, because they're putting you in a calorie deficit. So the best diet is the one that's sustainable for you. So it's whichever diet puts you in a calorie deficit that you can consistently do for weeks and months. That's the best diet for you if you want to lose weight. You don't need to pay anybody for their product for that.
no, yeah, and I couldn't agree with you more. And if we were to talk a year from today, and again, like I said before, if we would have talked a year ago today, and you would have predicted a global pandemic and everything else that's gone down, I would have called you a liar and bet my entire life savings against it. So goes to show you how much we really do know what the future is going to entail. Because who knows, a year from now we could be talking and you could see a fire in the background and hear gunshots. Who knows where the world's going to be at a year from today? But in an ideal world, where would you like to be at with your bodybuilding? Where would you like to be at with your overall life? What are some goals that you'd like to have achieved if we were to talk to you a year from today?
Okay, so this year I'd like to grow some more legs. With you talking previously about your legs, so I struggle with legs because I'm quite tall, and also I have a patella tendonitis in my right knee, which I got early on from volume squatting, from German volume training. So we have to be really, really careful with how we train legs to not upset it. We have to work around it. Again, that's the bonus of having a really good trainer, someone who knows your injuries and can write you a program around them rather than just trying to plow on through them, which I can say from experience is not a good thing to do. So yeah, this is the year of the legs. This is the year of the lower body. Part of the reason why my upper body is quite good was because when I had my tendonitis at its peak, I actually couldn't train lower for about 6 months. So we just trained upper. So that was when my upper really really grew and came on. Now my knee's not too bad, luckily, and we've learned how to keep it from being too cross. So this is the year where I'd like to really try and get some more quad, really try and build that quad sweep out. I've got good calves, so I'm not worried about my calves, but I really want to work on some quad sweep and some more hamstrings would be nice, please.
Yeah, calves, that's the number one genetic thing. I don't care what anyone says. You're really either born with them or you're born without them. I could do 10,000 calf raises a day and they wouldn't gain an ounce from me. But yeah, and again, we cannot thank you enough for coming on and sharing your story and just talking with us. And I really, really appreciate it. And is there anyone that you'd like to give a shout out to before we wrap things up?
I just really like to shout out my trainer. My trainer is who has built me really. All I've ever done is exactly what he's told me to do. I've eaten what he's told me to eat. I've lifted what he's told me to lift. So it's been his knowledge, his expertise, him listening to me moan on the days where I don't want to train and dragging me through, and him listening to me moaning that I'm not getting anywhere because I'm really impatient and I always feel like I'm not growing as much as I could be growing, even though he says I'm doing really well. So yeah, just a big shout out to Mitch Gibbons on Instagram. He's at PT Mitch G. Best trainer ever.
Yeah, I'll leave a link for all that stuff down below. And I totally forgot about asking you, and you brought it up, and I love it. That's great. Is that one of the most unfair things that this lifestyle does for people is that it gives them a lot of nice beginner gains usually, and then like you said, the progress steadies down where you're not going to gain as much as quick. It's, you go up really high and then you just plateau a little bit, and then you might go up just a tad, like slowly getting a little bit higher and higher. How did you deal with that? Because for me that was a hard thing for me too, because I saw all these gains in the beginning, like the first year, and then like the next 5 years, yeah, I gained probably about as much in the next 5 years as I did in the first year. And so how do you deal with that, knowing that, hey, I can work out even harder than I did when I first started, and I might not see the same amount of change that I saw in the beginning?
Absolutely, and it can really mess with your head. It can be really frustrating. But I try and keep a positive outlook on it all, and just think about how far I have come along, and not particularly about where I'm trying to go. Especially as I don't have a goal, so I just try and enjoy every day, enjoy my lifting, enjoy what I'm doing. I am still growing. My physique is still developing, even though it's not huge changes. It's not going to be different week to week or even month to month now. It's a slow process. But again, that's what makes it great. It's great because it's so hard. It's great because it's so slow. That's what makes it cool. If everyone could suddenly get a physique like that in 6 weeks or 8 weeks, then it's not so much of an achievement, is it? Anyone could do it. It's only the fact that you can't do that and you can't continue to do that at that pace. That's why it's tough and that's why it's great.
Yep, it's definitely a badge of honor for the people that practice it. And again, yeah, we cannot thank Becky enough for coming on and sharing her story. And I'll leave a link to her Instagram page down below. Buyer beware. You will be inspired to get in shape. Get off that couch and stop eating those Twinkies and look at someone and be like, 48, how does she look like that? But again, we cannot thank you enough for coming on. And I look forward to having you on a year from now and talking about the progress that you've made. It was so great talking to you. And again, thank you so much for coming on and sharing.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for asking me. It's been really good fun.
I appreciate that. And again, you guys, this is Ryan Johnson, DD on the spot, signing out. Have a great day, everyone.